Hello, I'm Neil Quigley and welcome to the latest episode of my Blogcast. Hope you're well and you've had a good few weeks. On the 18th of January, it was my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, the golden anniversary, half a century since their wedding day, which I think is an exceptional achievement. We did mark the occasion. My sister and I, along with my girlfriend Linda, took them out for a nice meal at a local restaurant. It's not that often we actually spend time together as a family of four nowadays, us all being grown up and doing our own thing. So it was lovely to go out for a nice meal, have some good food and share a bottle of wine. Also, it was great to get lots of stories about the wedding day itself, how they met, their courtship, and basically just filling in any gaps that I may not have known the answer to. I had seen many times all their wedding photos, which are great to see. It's so amazing how young looking some of my aunties are. I came along just under 2 years after they were married, so that tells you that I'm not far away from reaching a landmark birthday myself. In fact, it's next December 2026 will be my 50th, but I'm still a sprightly 48 at the moment, so that's a long way off. Anyway, we had a fantastic time out with them. We booked the dinner for quite early in the evening at 6 o'clock, and we had a 2-hour window to eat, which worked out absolutely perfectly. 2 reasons for doing that: gave everyone the chance to eat relatively early, get home and relax a bit before continuing the celebrations that they were doing the next day. And also, Linda and I were off very early on our holiday the next day. I have been very lucky over the last 7 or so years in that I have managed to get away for some winter sun in January or February most years. Obviously, the COVID years, that was not possible, but before that and after that is something I managed to do and something I really like. I am not a big fan of cold or chilly weather. I much prefer the sunshine and the warmth. Therefore, for me, the ideal time to go and visit a hot country is when it's freezing cold in England. And also, I just find it nice to be able to look forward to something in January that can often be a bit of a quiet and long month, and it really kickstarts my year. Plus, it means I normally go into February with at least a bit of a suntan, which makes me feel good. We went to Jamaica 3 years ago. It was our first holiday away overseas together after lockdown, and we went quite big on it because we had basically 3 years worth of holiday money saved up that we weren't able to use. We went to Sandals in the Ochi area of Jamaica last time. For this trip, we decided to go back to Jamaica for 12 nights, this time staying in an all-inclusive resort in Montego Bay. We managed to get a flight from Heathrow, but it did leave very early on the Sunday morning, so we had a few hours sleep after the meal out with my parents and then headed to the airport. We got there nice and early. Linda always organises the park at the airport scheme where you can drop your car literally in the short stay car park and walk across to the terminal while they look after it while you're away. That worked out great, and we managed to be one of the first people in the queue to get our luggage checked in, which was great. We sailed through security and we'd booked the #1 lounge at Heathrow, so we got straight in there, found ourselves some seats. What that does mean is if you have the lounge, you are pretty much guaranteed a sit down and a bit of space, which you don't always get if you're just waiting in the terminal with everybody else. Plus, inside the lounge there is free food and drink for you to enjoy. They looked after me really well in that when I found a member of staff to tell them that I was celiac and needed some gluten-free food, they bought me a gluten-free bacon roll and also some gluten-free cake in a packet, which was perfect. There was some fruit on offer as well, so I felt like I was nicely fed. On the flight itself, which was a Virgin Atlantic flight, my food needs were very nicely looked after. In fact, it felt like I did nothing but eat in the 11 hours it took us to get to Jamaica. One of the reasons it took us a little bit longer is the flight flight we took actually had a stop on the way. It stopped in the Bahamas. I've never been to the Bahamas before, didn't get to see too much of it. We had to stay on the plane in the airport for an hour while they dropped some passengers off before we made our way onwards to Jamaica and our final destination. The other good thing about the flight was, like with many airlines now, you can pay a little bit extra if you want to actually select where you sit rather than leave it to chance. Linda did this for us, and we thought we'd try for the first time, as they were available, to have the extra legroom seats. That does come with some added responsibility, because if things do go wrong, you are kind of responsible for helping to open the door as you're sat right by it. But it does mean you do have plenty of legroom, and on the journey out to Jamaica we were very lucky. It's a block of 3 seats, but nobody was in the third seat, so we had a spare seat to put our stuff on, and that gave us some extra room, which meant the flight out felt great. We did have a look in premium economy, the next step up, as we came in and out of the plane, and to be honest, looking at what it appeared you were getting with the seat and space in there, the extra legroom actually seemed like a better deal. You got, I think, a bit more for your money, so it was an enjoyable, if not quite long flight. On arrival, we thought we were absolutely nailing the holiday because the plane arrived 45 minutes ahead of schedule, so we thought, great, we'll be at the hotel earlier, we'll get a bit more sun on the first day, that will be great. We got through security, we got through customs relatively quickly, got to the baggage reclaim. There were a few bags coming off, but we couldn't see ours, and then for about an hour no more bags appeared. I guess they had some sort of issue with getting the bags off the plane, so we waited a whole hour before our bags eventually came round and we could head off. We were so long, Linda actually got a call from the private transfer we had booked, just checking we'd actually arrived and we still needed it because we were not with them so long after the plane had landed. Happily, they did wait for us and they sorted our car to take us the 40 minutes to our hotel. Check-in was relatively quick and painless, and they showed us to our room. It was an all-inclusive where you wear wristbands to show what you're entitled to, and like most hotels now, the key to your room was on the wristband, which saves you trying to remember any extra key cards. It means this thing is strapped to your wrist the entire time, so you shouldn't really lose it. In fact, they very much encourage you not to lose it because they were charging £150 if you lost your band. So I was taking a lot of care of that. There was a slight issue to resolve as we got into the room. Linda had booked, out of the options, a king-size bed. We walked in and there were 2 singles. At first, I wasn't sure if that was maybe her plan, but she was upset as I was, so we had to trudge back down to reception and point out that we had booked a king-size bed and not a twin room. They managed to resolve that issue for us quite quickly, so that was great. We did the classic thing you do when you check into anywhere new. We went out for a bit of a walk to get our bearings and see where everything was, and of course it was an all-inclusive resort, so we had a few drinks to ease ourselves in. We would have had some food normally, but as I said, we got fed so much food on the plane journey, neither of us felt like eating, and it had been quite a long day, so we were relatively tired. We were quite sensible on that first night. We just had a couple of drinks before we went up for a relatively early night to catch up on our sleep. Then the plan was to get up relatively early the next day and start the holiday properly with our first full day there. We're looking forward to a nice 12 days of sun, relaxing by the pool, by the beach, and topping up our tan. There were 2 sections to the resort. There was the children-friendly side and the adult-only section. We were on the adult-only section. The bonus of that being there were adult-only pools and beaches, and of course bars, and there were restaurants our side which were only for adults, but But we could also use the restaurants on the other side as well, which gave us much more options. I like a resort with lots of a la carte that ideally you can eat in for no extra cost as part of your initial deal to be there. Therefore, this place was good as they had lots of them. It's just easier for me with my food needs of having to have a very strict gluten-free diet. If I have a waiter or waitress come to the table, I can ask them questions and they can go directly to the chef who will be cooking the food fresh to make sure I can have a meal that won't hurt me, basically. So that worked quite well. There is, of course, the buffet, which you can use for breakfast, dinner, or your evening meal. Buffets are not the celiac's friend because they're not always greatly labelled with what is gluten-free and what isn't. But most importantly, we have to avoid cross-contamination, and that's almost impossible at a buffet because generally you get gluten-free things next to non-gluten-free things, and people, not their fault, you just do it instinctively, use the same utensils to pick up different things. And there's also the fact that when they put things on their plate, they may have gluten on there already. The tongs touch that small bit of cross-contamination is enough to make me ill. Therefore, tend to avoid buffets the best I can, and a la carte is the way forward. Not always easy at breakfast, but I just have to be very careful what I pick up and what I select to eat, and I always take my own fork up and select things that I know are gluten-free from the back to reduce the chance of picking up any gluten. Luckily, on this occasion at this place, there was an a la carte place where you could order breakfast. So I went there a few times and got omelettes, which is fine, no problem, gluten-free. I can choose what I have in them, that's fine. The problem was that place had the slowest service for breakfast that I think I've ever known. You had to allow a good hour to have your breakfast. So we only went there a couple of times, otherwise it really would have eaten into our relaxation time. There were a selection of restaurants. There was a fish restaurant, an Italian, an Indian, a Mexican, and also a Caribbean. We went to the Caribbean one on our first full day there. Then we tried out each of them in turn. Our favourite was the fish restaurant for quite a few reasons. Firstly, there was a large selection of things that I could actually have, which wasn't the case in all of them. The food was great in there, and that was one of the few places I could have a dessert. And I do love a pudding. As far as I'm concerned, a meal isn't a meal unless you've had all three courses ending with something sweet. That wasn't possible for me in many of the restaurants we were eating in. Therefore, I think, actually lose a bit of weight. It was almost like being on a health farm for a week and a half. Well, almost. That said, when the opportunity was there, sometimes I did have double dessert. Don't judge me, please. And the other reason this restaurant was so good, from night one, we had this server who was brilliant. She was very quick, looked after me fantastically, explained exactly what I could and couldn't have. She kept the drinks stocked up lovely, so we were really impressed. And happily, the second time we went back to that restaurant, she served us as well. We ended up going back there 4 times in total, including our final night, because we liked it so much. We were getting on that well with that waitress. We generally had a hug with her when we were leaving on every occasion, which was nice. The resort itself had several pool areas. The problem, as ever with these resorts, is they rarely seem to have enough sunbeds to sit around the pool or indeed sit on the beach. The first few days we go to the pool or beach straight after breakfast, and we might find, if we were lucky, 2 working sunbeds, and we just have to take them wherever they are. Some days all the working ones were gone, so the only ones we could find were broken sun loungers that would only lay flat. And it's the first time I've ever done this, but I felt I was left with no choice. Everybody was getting up really early and putting their towels on them to reserve them quite early in the day, or in some cases, I think even before they went to bed the night before. Now, I didn't want to do it, but I was there for 12 days. I wanted to get some sun, so therefore, in the end, I ended up setting my alarm for 7:30 just so I could nip down and put a towel on a lounger somewhere so we could have somewhere to lie for the day. I hated doing it, but what what can you do? If everybody else is playing that game, you've got no choice but to play it as well. So I did in the end. That's the first holiday I've ever had to do that, but it did mean every day we did get a sun lounger either by the pool or by the beach. We split our time between the both of them, more pool days than beach. The main reason being, while we were out there, it was quite windy and the sand just got blown everywhere, so you got covered in sand as you were on the beach. I did get a few paddles in the sea, which is something I love doing. The water in the Caribbean is always so warm and refreshing at the same time. It wasn't deep, the sea area they had set aside. You could go as far as this line of buoys they had. It took you quite a way out from the beach, but it was only about waist high and its absolute deepest. But it was a wonderful sandy beach, no pebbles or stones in sight, so it felt very good on the feet. There was the odd bit of seaweed about, but not too much. I've been to other beaches in various parts of the Caribbean where the seaweed is a lot worse than that, so that was very good. The water obviously clear and very warm, so I had a couple of nice paddles, but because it was quite windy for the entire time we were out there, the waves were a little bit rough, so I didn't fancy any swimming, so I just went for a paddle and a bit of wave jumping. The other improvement, I guess, on this holiday from the last few is because my chronic headache situation has gradually been getting better thanks to the acupuncture that I've been having. I feel much better than I did a year ago, so felt well enough to indulge a little bit more in the world of alcohol. So for the first time in about 3 holidays, I did actually start having cocktails around the pool and at the beach during the day again. The drink of choice being the pina colada, although I did have a Bob Marley at least one afternoon, which is a coloured drink, red, green and yellow, the colours of the reggae flag, if you like, hence why it's called a Bob Marley. They fill the rest of the glass with rum. It's very sweet, but it does have quite the kick to it. That was all very enjoyable. During the evenings, over dinner and after, I was drinking some red wine. The wine was okay. They had 2 options, a Cabernet Sauvignon and a Merlot. In more than one restaurant, they managed to, in the same glass, give me a mixture of them. They start with the Cabernet and I'll be drinking that, and they very kindly come to fill up the glass while it was not empty but getting a bit low, and then just as they were doing it, I look at the bottle and see they were pouring a Merlot in. I can confirm blending wines in this way is not necessarily a way of improving the taste of either wine. There were obviously quite a few bars spread across the site, but the one we tended to go to was the lounge bar, mainly because the guy behind there was great. He was very loud, very friendly, very good at mixing the drinks as well, very quick at serving. As soon as you were anywhere near the bar, he was taking your order, having a chat, having a laugh, off his own back, using his mobile phone and a Bluetooth speaker. He often played his own music in the bar, and there'd be sing-songs and general laughter and mickey taking. So that's where we spent most evenings. While I was there, did sample several different cocktails, most of which were very sweet. His version of a margarita, by the way, didn't taste like any classic margarita I've had, certainly not like one you'd get in Mexico, but oh my word, I'm not sure how much tequila he put in it, but it was very, very strong. There was one called BBC, which I thought I better try, which was basically Bailey's, banana and chocolate. That tasted amazing. More of a dessert cocktail, so I was having that before bed, really. The other place I tended to spend quite a lot of time eating while I was there, they had a jerk chicken hut right on the beach. I do like some barbecue chicken, basically cooking whole chickens outside on these big oil drum barbecues that were nicely spiced. Sadly, I couldn't have any of the accompanying things around them because either they contain gluten or there was a cross-contamination risk, so I just had the chicken. But basically, that was my lunchtime meal nearly every day, and I loved it. I'm not sure how much chicken I ate the entire time I was there, but it was a fair amount. I even had that on the day we flew home, about an hour before we had to get our transfer back to the airport. We did drag ourselves away from our sun loungers for one day to go on a day trip. We thought we should see some of the island while we were there. The last time we were in Jamaica, we did not leave our resort at all. So this time we decided to go to Dunn's River Falls which you could do in a day. We booked ourselves on the tour, got ourselves ready in reception at the pickup time, and the minibus then arrived a good half an hour after the time that we were told that it would. That said, the guide on there was fantastic. She was very friendly, very knowledgeable, very entertaining, told us about the history and explained all that we were seeing as we headed off to our first stop. Also taught us a bit of Jamaican patois as well, so I can almost kind of nearly speak the lingo, or some of it. That was good. There were two places we were going, the first of which was Dunn's River Falls, which is basically a 900-foot waterfall that flows right down onto the sea on the beach. What we were going to do there was climb it. Last time we stayed in Jamaica, we were about 15 minutes away from it. We did not go to it at all. This time it was an hour and a half journey to get there. But as I said, thanks to our guide, we learnt loads about the history of Jamaica and it was very entertaining. Before we actually got to the visitor attraction, they did give us a pit stop at a shop, obviously run by somebody they know or somebody they have a deal with, because to climb the waterfall you needed some water shoes, which luckily Linda and I already had from previous holidays, so we were good on that score. They also suggested if you want to take photos you would need one of those waterproof phone cases that go round your neck. Didn't have one of those, so we bought one of those each in this shop. And then I suddenly realised that I only had my swimming trunks on. Now I wear them, don't laugh, when I'm at the beach or the pool, just because I like to get a good suntan, and I always think if you're wearing shorts the suntan marks don't look very good and they're too low, looks odd, so I wear swimming trunks. It only dawned on me in this shop that at that point I'd have to climb this waterfall in just my swimming trunks. So in a rare moment of self-preservation or even a slight bit of shyness in the shop, I decided to buy myself a pair of reggae coloured swimming shorts, which gave me a bit extra coverage, shall we say. So I put those on in the restroom of the shop, so I was ready to go. We then all got back on the bus and it was a further 20 minutes to our destination. When we got there it was very exciting. There was a group of about 20 of us and we were taken by our guide on the bus to the guide who was going to be taking us up the waterfall. His name was Leroy. So you get dropped off at the visitor centre, which is near the top of the waterfall, so you have to walk all the way down to the beach, which is where the climb starts. So you get down to the beach. It does look quite stunning because the water falls right into the sea and you're looking up at rocks and all the water cascading down. Then we start the climb and the idea is to help each other up. So there are points where we're all holding hands in a chain. The guide directs us the best route to go. Some bits are quite shallow as you go up. Some bits are quite steep. Some bits the water is actually quite deep in places. Well, at least up to waist high, as deep as that. There were a couple of points where you could slide into the water, get pushed into the water, or dunk your head right under the waterfall. I chose to avoid all of those, as did Linda, although we did get some nice photos in the water doing the climb and stood under various parts of the waterfall. It took about 45 minutes to work our way all the way up. It was actually quite a gradual climb, so there were bits where you're working quite hard, but other bits where you were standing around and waiting. The water itself was not warm, but not cold. Refreshing is what I would call it, and it very much come at you through the rocks at different speeds, depending on which bit you were at. It was a little bit slippy in places, so you had to really concentrate where you were putting your feet and try to avoid the black stones, which were the ones covered in algae, therefore the ones that were quite slippy. As we went up, there were options where you could have easy or hard routes. Generally, I was taking the easy route up, and that was going fine. As we got to right near the top, he sent Linda the slightly easier route, and he convinced me I could do the last bit of the climb going the tough expert route, which I went to do. But sadly, as I was doing that, me being me and being the calamity I am, my foot slipped off a rock and banged into another rock, so I managed to either badly bruise or break one of my toes. I'm still not totally sure. It went a nice colour of purple and took quite a while to stop hurting. That said, it was a delightful achievement when we eventually got to the top and everybody celebrated. We had a photographer coming with us who was also taking a video which he was selling. I bought that because I thought it might be worth having a video record of me climbing a waterfall, because I have no plans to do it ever again. I've done that now, tick. Some of the scenes from the Tom Cruise film Cocktail were shot at the Duns River Falls, as they were at the next place we visited, which was the Blue Hole. So we were back in the bus, and this one again was another waterfall, but it had deeper pool sections in it. I'll be honest, I only really wanted to go to the Duns River Falls, but the Blue Hole thing was tagged on to this tour that we bought, so we just went along with it. I had done no research about what was going to happen at this second place. It wasn't until we were on the bus they started talking about areas where you could jump in. So we got there, they stick you in a life jacket, you have these guides take you up. It's similar in that there is quite a bit of waterfall and rock climbing involved, but there are various sections where you can jump from different heights. We decided that wasn't really for us, so we did the bits of the climb we could and just watched everybody else jump in the water from way higher than I thought was safe. So we looked at it but didn't really do too much. If we had not gone to it, would it have been the end of the world? Probably not. As we didn't do the jumping, we didn't get as much out of it as maybe some others did, but I will be honest, I was perfectly fine with that. And then they fed us at the end, and you'll never guess what the meal was on offer. Yep, more jerk chicken, which luckily I did love. I couldn't have what everybody else was having, but they did have some salad for me. So I enjoyed some jerk chicken, a salad and a rum punch, which was well deserved after our earlier waterfall climbing. It was quite a long day, but we did make sure we were back in time for dinner and drinks, ending with a few cocktails. Obviously, after being out in the fresh air and doing some climbing, we both slept very well that night. The other thing I really liked about the resort, and this is something I only tend to do on holidays, they had a coffee shop there, which was all part of the all-inclusive. You could order coffees, there were some cakes, ice cream in there. I get into a routine when I'm on holiday of having a latte once a day. I hardly drink anything coffee related at all in normal everyday life when I'm at home, but for some reason when I'm in a hot country or on holiday, I do like to have, well, I call it a coffee, my girlfriend calls it a cup of hot milk with a tiny bit of coffee in. Anyway, it's as close as I get to drinking coffee, so I'm partial to the odd latte. Time flew by very quickly. We had a great holiday. We did learn a new card game while we were there, Uno. It was a present my girlfriend got given at least a couple of years ago now, and we never got round to playing, so we decided to teach ourselves, and I can confirm it's a lot easier to play than I thought it was, and it gets very addictive. Although we are so competitive, we only played it a couple of times because there's no point in falling out on holiday. The final game we played on the very last day as we were waiting for our private transfer was a game of Travel Scrabble. We had an hour and a half to kill. My girlfriend and I love a bit of Scrabble, so we got the game on. Sadly and annoyingly for me, she beat me by 7 points. It had been close all the way through. I thought I was going to do it, but that defeat right at the end, just as we were about to leave, almost spoiled the holiday for me. That's how competitive I am. I got over it though, and the transfer arrived and we headed to the airport. Like on the way there, we had a stop on the way back. We flew an hour into another Caribbean island and had to wait there for an hour or so while more people boarded the plane before we flew back to Heathrow. I can never sleep on planes. There is a 5-hour time difference between Jamaica and England. England is ahead, so with our flight being a night flight and me getting no sleep, needless to say, when we got home at about midday on the Saturday, I was a little bit tired. So the day consisted of an afternoon sleep for a few hours before getting up to order a takeaway pizza, sharing a bottle of champagne to toast the holiday, and then it was an early night. One other thing I did do on the plane, I did take advantage of the plane entertainment. I finally got around to seeing the latest Ghostbusters film. It was great to see so many members of the original cast back and them working with the more current members of the new films in that franchise. But the best stroke oddest bit for me was James Acaster appearing as a new Ghostbuster. I wasn't really expecting that. I thought he was great, but it was just a bit odd seeing him in that position. I've seen James do stand-up lots of times, always fantastic, but now obviously he's on the brink of making it big in Hollywood. That is so cool, by the way, being in a Ghostbusters film, and he got to carry one of the packs and wear the suit as well. I'm very jealous. I also did watch for the second time the Fall Guy movie, having been a big fan of the original series with Lee Majors. I really enjoyed the film. Saw it when it came out in the cinema, and I enjoyed it just as much the second time round. That is the holiday done for another year, but I did achieve my aim of getting a bit of a suntan, so I'm very happy. That's it for now. Just a reminder, you can hear my radio show Saturday afternoons between 2 and 4 at radio9springs.com. That is all for now. Take care, look after yourselves and each other, and we'll speak again soon. Bye bye.